How did a company valued at $47 billion fall to a $50 million valuation in a matter of months? How did a darling of startup ecosystem become a cautionary tale? Hi, I'm Anshul, and today we are going to talk about the rise and fall of WeWork. For the uninitiated, WeWork is a co-working business founded in 2010 by this gentleman named Adam Neumann, along with his co-founders Miguel McKelvey and Rebecca Keith, also his wife. It has been a sector-defining company which has been a darling of the startup ecosystem for a very, very long time. Only that, very recently, in late 2023, it filed for bankruptcy. A steep crash from a valuation of $47 billion at which it hoped to go public just a few years ago. Before I move forward, let me clarify that WeWork India is a different entity which has franchised the brand from WeWork but is operated independently by the Embassy Group and continues to operate well. Back to WeWork. There are incredible lessons to be learned from the company's meteoric rise and the drastic fall. WeWork is a prime example of the philosophy of growth at all costs gone terribly wrong. WeWork was built at a breakneck speed. Between 2012 and 2018, they went from 7 locations to 425 locations globally. They built large, expansive spaces where startups could operate from, and they did a rather good job. What made WeWork such a favorable option? Well, beautifully designed spaces. WeWork spaces are glass-walled and sunlight flows through the window and the offices. With flexibility on how much space you could use and for how long, people ended up saving a lot of money. It was just easier to go to a WeWork than to set up your own office. One of the features that gets mentioned in every article on the fact about WeWork is that they served beer on tap, blurring the lines between work and play. But more than anything, it was the sense of community that made the idea so fresh. It provided a great community of startups and professionals connecting online and offline, fostered through carefully curated events. Valuation increased from $1.5 billion in 2014 to $47 billion in 2018, with huge investments from top investors like SoftBank and Benchmark Capital. The WeWork model was simple. Adam Neumann started taking out leases on a floor or two of an office building, chopped it up into smaller parcels, and then charged monthly membership fee to startups and small companies that wanted to work right next to each other. However, co-workings are physical spaces, and we all know how much time it takes to put up physical infrastructure. WeWork, in its quest to achieve growth at all costs, put financial prudence to the winds and made a number of financially irresponsible decisions. WeWork entered long-term lease agreements with landlords, sometimes as long as 10 to 15 years at prices much above the market, only because they wanted to move fast. By doing this, they committed to high fixed expenses for a long period, but they sublet the spaces to tenants on much shorter terms. If WeWork couldn't maintain high occupancy rates, the company would still be on the hook for long-term lease payments without the corresponding revenues from subtenants. The other major expense was community expenses. WeWork's branding centered around creating a community-centric, collaborative workspace environment. However, maintaining this environment came with high costs. These included expenses for stylish interior design, amenities like free coffee and beer, community events, and a large staff to manage these spaces and events. These costs were substantial, and as WeWork expanded rapidly, these community expenses ballooned. They contributed significantly to the company's losses as WeWork struggled to balance the cost of providing a high-end workspace experience with the revenue generated from its members. When WeWork filed IPO papers in 2019, it all became clear. The documents revealed bigger losses than thought. The IPO bombed. WeWork's value crashed almost immediately, and in 6 months, COVID hit, and the landscape for shared working changed dramatically. There are critical lessons to be learned for founders and investors from the WeWork fiasco. There is a saying in the VC circles, which is, Growth cures all evils. WeWork is a prime example of why that is absolutely not true. It solved things for a while, but then growth for the sake of growth is dangerous, very dangerous. Losing control of your cost structures, which usually is a feature of a high growth system, is dangerous to the very existence of the business. The other lesson to pick is to understand the nature of your business. All businesses are built a certain way, and ignoring that can be an unforgivable mistake, no matter how well you are doing otherwise. WeWork, in its IPO document during its failed public listing attempt, used the word technology 110 times. So, is WeWork really a technology business? I would call it a real estate plus hospitality play, which is enabled by technology at a level which is today quite common to many traditional offline players. Its community was an advantage for sure, but it was not its core business. People still came for the physical spaces. But why did they want to be seen as a technology business? Well, because technology businesses or internet-based businesses tend to grow very fast and hence command a high valuation. WeWork wanted those high valuations so that they could fund their high growth, which will get them higher valuation and hence more capital. You understand this cycle. It worked for them for a while, but then the music stopped. It always does. WeWork was definitely not the only one to be playing this flywheel of more capital, more growth. But they are now a gleaming example of how this ends. For founders, high valuations feels great, allows you to do so many things. The public adulation it brings is addictive. But as Adam Newman learned, it does not always stay that way. And if you are a business, you have to prove your worth with real revenues and real profits eventually. And yes, WeWork was not a technology business. Something its founders and investors learned the hard way. They did so many things right, but they wanted to grow at all costs.